Hi everyone, welcome back to the PM Schools YouTube channel. I am Khanjan and today we have a very special guest, Narayan, with us. Narayan is currently the product manager at Zoomcar. So Narayan, can you just quickly give an introduction about yourself to our viewers?
Sure. I'm currently working as a product manager at Zoomcar. Zoomcar, for those of you who might not know, it's a self-drive rental car place. So you can take a car and go into city or wherever. Um, Before that, I worked as a product manager at a startup called Hyperjam in their B2B product, which is for a product that helps content creators come up with new content for different social media events. Before that, I worked as an Android developer for 4 years, and then later I made switch to product management.
Great. Okay, so we'll also do like a session or rather a bite with Narayan to hear his story transitioning from a PM to developer to again PM. It sounds very interesting. But before that, we'll directly jump into the mock interview. So Narayan, today let us do a question which focuses on, or rather a case which focuses on improving LinkedIn's job section. So, if you are not aware, or if anybody is not aware, LinkedIn has a separate jobs section, right? Where it's mainly like a jobs marketplace. So, as a PM, I'd like you to go through the journey of how would you identify certain issues, how would you fix them, or how would you suggest improvements to them, if any.
Got it. Thanks, Kanjan. Just to reiterate the question, I think we want to improve LinkedIn's jobs feature, right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Few clarifying questions. Do you have anything in particular on your mind when you say improvement in terms of what you're looking at, or is it up to me to define?
Yeah, so how I'd like to put it is that the jobs feature in general is not doing well. And when I say it's not doing well in terms of the adoption and usage, it's not picking up well, right? So we definitely know that there is some issue, but we don't know what the issue is. So yeah, so you'd have to probably go into finding the improvement areas and then suggest improvements.
Got it. So I think we mainly want to drive adoption and usage
Yeah,
once more what the issues are. Got it. I think jobs has a feature has two sides to it, just like a marketplace. On one side, there are recruiters. On the other side, there are job seekers.
yeah.
Uh, I think we can explore both of them unless you have any preference.
No, makes sense.
And I think for your goal, I think it's independent of platform as well, right? It's not specific to any platform like web or mobile.
Yeah, it's independent.
Got it. I think I have my questions answered. So before I proceed, I'll give you a quick outline of the structure I want to follow.
Okay.
First, I'll talk a little bit about the product and the users of the product and any user needs or pain points they might have that are currently unmet. And once we understand their needs, we can look at some of the solutions that can, probably solve them. And since we know what our goal is, we can prioritize those solutions to see which can drive the maximum, which can drive adoption to a larger extent. And then I think possibly if the time permits, we can look into a few metrics and any trade-offs, etc.
Sure, sounds great.
Could you give me a couple of minutes to think about
Yeah.
users and their needs? Thank you. Hey, so I was thinking about the users and the product. I think first, even before we jump into users, first we could talk a little bit about the product. So LinkedIn jobs, I think most people might have used at some point in their life, and I would say it works. Sometimes it's not such a bad, product, but there definitely is a scope for improvement, I would say. And even before we look at users, I just want to touch upon what's LinkedIn's mission as well, so that whatever solution we propose can be in line with their mission. So
Sure.
LinkedIn's mission, I guess, is to connect working professionals and make them successful and productive. I think is their main goal. So with that, With that, I think the main users for this feature are, job seekers and recruiters. Those are, I think, the two sides of this feature. And within job seekers, you again have blue collared workers and white collared workers. Um, but I think LinkedIn usually works best for the white collared people. It's really not there for the blue collared segment right now. I think so. That's where I want to focus on job seekers in the white collar industry, and we could even focus on certain geography. But I think the question is broad enough that we don't have to dig deep into certain geography right now.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that seems fine.
Cool. So I was just thinking about a few needs. Just thinking about the process of application for jobs itself. The whole process is very anxious, right? For a user, it uh, a lot rides on actually getting a job that you want, and the process is very anxious. And being able to get to a company or join a place where you actually like is a stressful scenario.
Yeah.
So I think anything that we could do, using LinkedIn or the jobs feature to reduce the anxiety and to reduce the anxiety throughout the whole process and make the process seamless, so that the user, in this case the job seeker, can focus on what he's good at, right? Like showing his skills, applying to recruiters, and doing the interviews well. So I think so from that lens, I could think of a few pain points. So typically, when I was looking for a job previously as well, uh, one of the things that happens is you might have your own preferences, but whenever you land in the jobs page, you see so many listings that are really not relevant to you. No matter how many times you've ignored them, they still show up.
Yeah.
Uh, and in certain sectors and certain places, the job listings could be so many that it becomes a job in itself to swift through all of them to get to the one that you actually like. So
Mm.
excessive listing from, especially some companies, if they're excessively promoting some job listing or anything, you see it a lot of times, and that gets annoying pretty quickly.
Mm.
That's one. And second one is, when I actually do find some listing that I'm interested in, I typically tend to have questions with respect to uh, the breadth of the role and other things like maybe location or their culture related, etc. That I sometimes want to get cleared or want to reach out to recruiter to find out more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And currently it's really difficult on LinkedIn, and the process is very fragmented and offline.
Mm.
You have to mail them and ask for questions, etc. So reaching out to recruiters or companies to ask questions is a big problem itself. That's the second problem, I would
Okay.
say. Third one is more like so sometimes when I do reach out, I do apply on LinkedIn directly, but I always prefer to talk to someone in the company and make them refer me in the company. That for me is a better way to approach companies than directly clicking on the send apply button, because you have so many people for some job listings. At least you have thousands of people, if not more than that, applying, and it's very hard for even recruiters to check through all of them. And because of this, even recruiters might not get to good quality candidates who are down in the pipeline. And it's also difficult for job seekers to uh, apply specifically to the companies that they would actually like, right?
Yeah.
So that's an issue, not being able to involve the employees within the company. A few more issues are, let's say if you're a creator or a maker kind of role, right? Programmer or an artist or a designer, you could always click on the apply button and apply, but it's very hard to show your work within LinkedIn. You have these external sites like HackerRank or Dribble or something where you could show display your work, but within LinkedIn itself, where the actual process of applying is happening, it's very hard to show your work.
Yeah.
That's another problem. And there is this I think one last problem. The fifth one is LinkedIn currently is not suited to some sectors like blue collar segments as well. Um, so with those, I think just looking at these needs, I want to focus on only a few of them for the sake of this question, at least. Mm, I think we could focus on the first three, which is basically the process of finding the listing that you like, without having to deal with a lot, and being able to reach out to uh, or talk to recruiters. And the third one being taking the help of internal employees to make your application stronger. So could I take a couple of minutes to come up with solutions for these problems?
Sure. Before that, any specific reason why you picked only these problems?
Good question. I think the one problem that I chose to not pick up here, the blue collared one, I think right now the platform itself is not geared towards creating a good experience for blue collar workers, I would say, not
Okay,
just the jobs platform in itself. So for them, I think their jobs are a bit fragmented and a bit more dynamic, and a lot to do with timings and attendance, etc., and the tools for which are currently not present on LinkedIn right now. And
sure,
the other one being being able to show work, uh, users being able to show their work. It's also part of how to make their overall LinkedIn profile better, not just for the jobs feature itself. So I want to keep it focused on the jobs feature for now.
sure. Fair enough.
Can I take a couple of minutes to think about a few solutions,
Yeah.
unless you have any other problem statements that, pain points that you want me to look into?
No, I think these cover, at least for the first improvement stint, these are enough.
Cool. Makes sense. Let me think about solutions. Okay, so thinking about these user needs, I think I was able to come up with a few solutions. We could go through them. And okay, the first one, which is seeing way too many listings that are not relevant to me. Uh, we could do simple things like muting certain companies within our feed. So, for example, uh, when I was applying for jobs, I was seeing listings from this particular company. Maybe it's what they were promoted or not, I don't know. But they, even though I keep uh, ignoring that, I keep seeing it. The simple mute option to not show from this company. I also do get that LinkedIn needs to promote. So
Yeah,
what we could even do it mute for a certain period of time. You don't need to mute eternally, but mute for a certain period of time, so that the user also not want to completely mute it even in the future, right? You
sure,
don't go to mute settings and unmute. And I think this muting could also help as a signal to LinkedIn's algo to tweak it and make it more relevant for the users.
mm,
So that's one way. So muting certain companies and LinkedIn, tweeting the algorithm a little bit. Second problem we discussed was reaching out to recruiters. So I think a easier way to do this is within the job listings page itself. Typically, sometimes you have the recruiter who listed, sometimes it's just the company. There could be an option to ask a question or reach out to recruiter, and to prevent spam also we could give a only fixed length of question so that users don't write big paragraphs within it. And if we want to do even a little bit more, we could give fields as in what parts of the job, let's say work culture or compensation or location, etc., which we could give those tags so that the question could be made even more relevant using those tags. So basically having some option within the job listing page where user could ask a question to the recruiter.
okay,
And third one, being able to connect with internal employees for the application. I think taking a leaf out from LinkedIn's recommendation feature, I think users could ask for referral for their mutual connections. If we show all the mutual connections when we go to the job listing page, let's say I'm looking at for example, Razorpay, and you are my connection within resume, and you could show me all the mutual connections, and there could be a option to request for a referral. It could work very similar to recommendation, wherein you give a little bit of information about yourself, and they will write a recommendation. Sorry, they will write a referral within the organization, which, since the recruiter already has access to the jobs portal where they see all the applications, they could see referrals against applicants, and maybe even have a option to filter the applicants based on referrals, so that it's always easier to judge applicants if there is an internal referral. And within the referral itself, the employee of the company could talk about the previous experience they have had with the user, all those things. So whatever fields we think are mandatory, like previous experience, or how long have you worked with them, we could make those fields mandatory within that form fields, and the recruiter could go through them. So that's probably another you know solution we could try. There are a lot more I think we could build on top of this, like having referral bonus structures. Referral bonus is a big thing in most companies. So within that itself, so once you see someone converted finally, you know uh, giving them referral bonus. And I think there is a little bit of trade-off here that we need to think about as well when we are thinking about the solution, which is a lot of people might require, might request for referrals, right? I might have a lot of connections in a lot of companies, and if I go on clicking referral for every connection, it'll be a lot for recruiters as well, and then it again ends up becoming spammy. So I think like what LinkedIn currently does with their premium,
Yeah,
you only get a certain number of requests for referrals, very much like emails, right? I think for a free trial user, you only get some 3 emails per month. So we could do something like that, like putting a cap on how many referrals you could request within a month. I think that should minimize spam while also keeping this uh, a very valuable option for the users. So any questions so far in this one?
yeah. So the referral part, right? So currently, what LinkedIn does is they have this like it is called a refer kind of a tab, but then essentially it's just like a communication between the requester and the referrer. And the referrer still has to go to their own portal and sort of put the referral in, right? And there is no visibility to the requester whether or not this has gone through. So are you suggesting an inbuilt kind of a feature on LinkedIn where the referrer can sort of click on refer this candidate and it shows to the recruiter, or are you suggesting that it still continues the way it is?
So I'm suggesting once the user requests for a referral, so then it goes to the referrer, like whoever has to refer, very similar to recommendation request, right?
Okay.
So they see the request, and then they have to fill the form
Okay.
within those fields, whatever we think are important in terms of previous experience, time spent, which manager, reportee, etc. And then he has to fill in that form, and the referral happens. So this way, the referrer is also invested in the process, so that it's not just a click of a button, which again becomes a spammy process.
Sure. Cool. That makes sense.
So I think of these solutions, just looking at these solutions, I want to prioritize which we want to focus first. Uh, Looking at these, I think uh, none of them take incredibly long time to implement. Just trying to prioritize with the impact these solutions can create compared to their effort, the effort that's involved in each of these. So first one, which is muting certain companies and tweaking algo, I think decent effort, not a lot of effort. Impact, I think decent impact. It reduces, the time required to see, get to an opportunity that you like.
Yeah.
Second one is asking a question, asking recruiter for questions. I think again this will have a decent medium level impact, while the effort is still not not a lot. It's just a feature, and we might have a few form fields. Third one, though, I think asking for a referral. Um, it could be a lot more. It could be a bit more effortful than the previous two because it involves a lot of parties, three users in this case. But also, I feel this is the highest impactful feature of all the three. This can actually make or break a candidate's application process. Right, a strong internal referral is a very good signal if you want to interview this person or not. So while the first two, seeing excessive listings or not being able to ask questions, you can still deal with. You can make your peace with it. This one, I think, is the most impactful out of the three. I think so. I would ideally prioritize this solution for my first version of improvement for the job feature. What do you think?
Yeah, makes sense.
Great. We discussed a little bit on how we would implement it. So just to recap on how I want to implement this particular feature, the user could request a referral whenever he could see a mutual connections within the job listing, within the jobs details page, and he could click on one of those. We could expand the list and we could request for a referral from there itself. And once the user requests for a referral, it could go to the person. Let's call him as a referrer. I think the referrer can see all the referrals that he has got, and from that, he can share his experience with that particular user applicant and finish the referral process. And this referral can show up in the recruiter's dashboard against each application. You could see if there is a referral, and being able to filter the applicants using this referrals is another option that we could explore as well.
Sure.
So I think if we have time, I could quickly look into a few metrics that will help us measure the success of this product.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the question we talked about, we want to increase the adoption of LinkedIn Jobs feature. So I think this solution could help us move the needle in that direction. And there are a few ways to measure adoption, but I think the most important metric that I would look at, to see if this feature or solution is successful or not, uh, I would see the change in conversion rate for applicants, right? So let's say typically if a user has to apply to 50 different places to get a job that he likes. Now once we roll out this feature, once people start using it, we can compare the conversion rate of landing in a successful role. That's probably the North Star metric I think I'll focus on. But another a few more adoption metrics that I think we should keep an eye on are what percent of users actually use this feature in a typical month when they are applying, and you know and users who actually tend to use this feature, how many of them do actually get shortlisted for the interview process. Those are, I think, a few more metrics that we could look into. um, so before I actually wrap up, uh, just want to mention a few trade-offs. I think we already discussed as well. So at any point, because this involves sending messages and exchanging messages, we want to put in necessary limits so that there isn't excessive spam. And like we discussed, one way to do that would be limiting the number of referrals you could request in a free tier, right? Since most users are usually on free tier on LinkedIn, this should limit the spam that is generated. And we could also, excuse me, we could also put in additional conditions like, if a referral should be able to mute someone if they are requesting for access referrals, etc. Uh, that's it from my side. If there isn't anything else, I could summarize the solution. Do you have any questions before
Yeah,
I
I
do?
have one question. So while you, in terms of metrics, while you would measure the micrometrics of the specific features, but how would you really establish whether these features have actually improved the adoption and usage of LinkedIn, right, as a whole. So would you like to look at any global metrics or any global funnels for that?
Sure. So are you asking about adoption of whole LinkedIn product, or are you talking only about the jobs product here?
The jobs.
Jobs product. I think once we roll out, uh, a straightforward way to maybe measure adoption is how many users of LinkedIn are actually using the jobs feature. LinkedIn itself has a lots of features, and jobs being one of them. And once we roll out these features, we could see what percentage of total users actually end up using the jobs feature. I think that's a straightforward way to look into it. Uh, is that what you were asking, or
Yeah, I mean, just that. So, a lot of times, what happens is when we as product managers are working on specific features, right? We get so entangled in the feature itself that we forget or we don't forget, but we sort of miss out on uh, the business goal as such. So, here the business goal would essentially be that since the revenue model for LinkedIn would be the earnings from maybe the sponsored job posts or maybe the usual job posts which are not sponsored but the recruiters might be paying something for that, right? So in terms of if we talk about improvement would be for the customer side, it would be adoption and usage. So for that, as you said, we would look at the increase in the users or the percentage of users who are using jobs versus the other features. That can be one way. And then for LinkedIn, sort of course, if the users increase, the propensity of earning more from the or having more job posters or having more recruiters, because LinkedIn is a better portal than the others, would maybe translate into revenue, maybe not, right? So would you like to also look at certain metrics or certain journeys of customers in that space?
yeah, I think yeah, that's a good point. I think you can also look from the recruiter and the company's perspective, wherein uh, what percentage of companies do actually tend to list jobs now that there's more traction.
Yeah.
And once that is there, you also see a lot of companies coming in and promoting. So you could also measure the share of promoted job listings versus the normal unpromoted job listings, if that's increasing as well. And LinkedIn, I think, has a separate pay tier for recruiters. So you
Hmm.
could also see the increase in revenue from recruiter account premium sales as well. So those are few other metrics that could look into.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah, I think we've covered almost all aspects. So you can summarize for the viewers.
Thanks. So our ask was to improve LinkedIn Jobs feature, specifically in terms of adoption and usage of the feature, so that more people actually discover the feature and make good use of it to find jobs, and eventually also to increase the bottom line of LinkedIn. So we started off talking about the product and the company goal and users. We narrowed on job seekers as the target user segment that we want to focus on for this particular use case, for this particular problem statement. And then we looked at a few needs that they have, mainly the how the whole process is anxious and having excessive listings and reaching out to recruiters, and connecting with internal employees for referrals, etc. And then we discussed about a few solutions on how we could mitigate these in terms of muting certain companies, in terms of asking recruiters for questions and asking internal employees for referrals. So, and we prioritized asking referrals as the main solution that we want to try out for our next set of improvements, because we feel that has the highest amount of impact. So we discussed about how that solution could look within the product, and we discussed about a few metrics that could actually help us measure adoption and thus also the success of the product.
Perfect. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the mock interview. So thank you so much, Narayan. And for all the viewers, if you have any questions for Narayan or me, you can comment below. And please subscribe to our channel because we are going to come up with many more such videos. And the content is free for you. It's coming from the real world PM. So it's going to definitely help you land your dream PM role.